The massive Zephyrian warships moved silently through the dark void of space, their sensors scanning every corner of the galaxy for new worlds to conquer. For 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled over countless planets, and their scouts never stopped looking for fresh targets. Admiral Vexmore sat in his command chair, reviewing reports from the Outer Rim territories, when something unusual caught his attention. A small blue planet, spinning quietly around a yellow star, was sending out signals that shouldn't exist. The energy readings made no sense. How could such a primitive world have technology that the Empire didn't recognize? Vexmore's 6 eyes narrowed as he studied the data. These creatures had somehow learned to send messages faster than light itself, but they had never contacted the galactic community. It was impossible, yet the proof was right there on his screens. Meanwhile, millions of miles away on Earth, Dr. Hyun-Woo Kim was having the worst night of his career. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, and his back ached from hunching over the computer monitors in the Seoul Deep Space Research Center. He was about to call it quits when something made his blood freeze. A signal was coming through the massive radio telescopes, but it wasn't from any human source. The pattern was too perfect, too organized to be natural space noise. Hyun-Woo's hands shook as he adjusted the equipment, trying to get a clearer reading. The signal was definitely artificial, definitely intelligent, and definitely not from Earth. He grabbed his phone and started dialing his supervisor, then stopped. Who would believe him? He needed more proof first. Back in the Empire's capital ship, Admiral Vexmore was getting more confused by the minute. His science teams were sending him reports that made his brain hurt. These humans had somehow figured out quantum communication without following any of the standard galactic development patterns. Most species learn to travel between stars before they learn to send messages across space instantly. But humans had done everything backwards. They had nuclear weapons, but no proper space travel. They had global communication networks, but still fought wars over tiny pieces of land. They had sent signals into space looking for other life, but they had never received an answer until now. It was like watching a child learn to run before learning to walk. Dr. Ji-Hai Park, the Empire's top expert on alien species, couldn't sleep after reading the initial reports about Earth. She had studied thousands of different civilizations over her long career, but humans were unlike anything she had ever seen. They seemed to solve problems by creating bigger problems, then finding creative ways to fix both issues at once. Their military technology was surprisingly advanced, but they used it against each other instead of preparing for galactic threats. They had art, music, and stories that showed incredible creativity, but they also had entertainment that celebrated violence and conflict. It was as if they enjoyed chaos and found beauty in destruction. The discovery of humanity sent waves of concern through the Empire's scientific community. These weren't just another primitive species to be easily conquered and controlled. These were unpredictable, dangerous creatures who might actually pose a threat to galactic order. Dr. Calvin had studied alien civilizations for over 2 centuries, but nothing had prepared her for what she found when she started analyzing human transmissions. She spent weeks listening to intercepted radio signals, television broadcasts, and internet communications from Earth. What she discovered made her stomach turn with disgust and fear. These humans were absolutely insane. They fought wars over everything: religion, territory, resources, and sometimes just because they didn't like each other's political systems. She watched their news broadcasts and couldn't believe what she was seeing. Entire cities destroyed, millions of people killed, and they acted like it was just another day at the office. But the worst part wasn't their constant fighting, it was how much they seemed to enjoy violence. They made movies about wars that hadn't even happened yet. They created games where the whole point was to kill as many opponents as possible. They had sports where people beat each other senseless while crowds cheered. Dr. Calvin had never encountered a species that found entertainment in simulated destruction. Their weapons technology terrified her even more. These creatures had figured out how to split atoms and turn that knowledge into bombs capable of destroying entire continents. They had created biological weapons that could wipe out all life on their planet. They had chemical weapons that could kill millions in minutes. And they pointed all of these weapons at each other, instead of preparing for external threats. On Earth, Xiong-Ho Lee was experiencing his own kind of horror, but for completely different reasons. As director of Seoul's International Space Communications Center, he had been trying to make sense of the alien signals for 3 straight days without sleep. His team was working around the clock, but the mathematics embedded in the transmissions were unlike anything they had ever seen. Min-ji Cho, his brightest young researcher, finally cracked part of the code on Thursday morning. What she found made everyone in the room go silent. The aliens weren't just sending random messages. They were conducting a detailed survey of human civilization, collecting data about everything from population centers to military installations to industrial capabilities. The aliens had been watching Earth for months, maybe even years. They knew exactly how many nuclear weapons humans possessed, where they were stored, and how they could be deployed. They had mapped every major city, identified key leaders, and analyzed human communication networks. It was like they were preparing for something big. Dr. Calvin's final report to the Imperial Council was clear and terrifying. Humans were too dangerous to be allowed to continue developing on their own. They needed immediate containment before they figured out how to leave their planet and spread their violent tendencies across the galaxy. She recommended a full-scale intervention within 30 days. The Council agreed immediately. Within hours, they had drafted a formal notice of civilization correction and transmitted it to every major communication hub on Earth. The message was translated into dozens of human languages, though the translation software struggled with the complex grammar and cultural nuances. SETI facilities around the world received the message simultaneously at exactly 3:47 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. The alien communication was polite but firm. Humanity had been judged unfit for independent existence and would be placed under imperial supervision for the safety of the galaxy. The second Imperial fleet arrived at Earth like a storm of metal and death. 2,000 warships stretched across space in perfect formation, their weapons powered up and ready to turn humanity's home planet into cosmic dust. War Commander Nexvor was confident that this overwhelming display of force would end the human problem once and for all, but the humans waiting for them were no longer the same desperate defenders who had barely survived the first battle. 3 months of intense preparation had transformed Earth's military into something the galaxy had never seen before. Subin Park stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, a vessel that looked like it had been built by someone having a fever dream. The ship was part human engineering, part stolen alien technology, and part pure improvisation. Half the systems shouldn't have worked together, but somehow they did, creating a warship that was faster, stronger, and stranger than anything in the Imperial fleet. Subin had been a commercial pilot before the invasion, flying passenger jets between Asian cities. Now she was commanding humanity's most advanced warship, leading a fleet of hybrid vessels that represented the best of human creativity and alien technology combined. The battle began exactly as War Commander Nexvor expected. His massive fleet moved into attack formation, while the smaller human force tried to maneuver for defensive positions. But then something happened that broke every rule of space combat the Empire had ever written. Yoon Young Choi's masterpiece finally revealed itself. For months she had been working with captured alien computer systems, learning how their networks operated and where their weaknesses lay. She had created something that was part computer virus, part quantum physics experiment, and part work of art. When Subin gave the signal, every human ship simultaneously released the virus into space using modified communication arrays. The alien fleet's computers were so interconnected that the virus spread through their entire network in seconds, but instead of simply crashing their systems, it did something much more interesting. The virus rewrote the aliens' targeting computers to see beauty instead of threats. Their weapon systems began firing in complex geometric patterns that created stunning light shows instead of destruction. Their navigation systems started plotting courses based on artistic principles rather than tactical advantage. Their shields began fluctuating in harmony with cosmic background radiation, turning each ship into a massive musical instrument. War Commander Nexivore watched in horror as his invincible fleet began behaving like a collection of abstract art. Installations. His weapons were firing, but they were creating sculptures out of energy, instead of destroying targets. His ships were moving, but they were dancing rather than attacking. While the alien fleet was trapped in technological chaos, Hyojin Lee was leading the most dangerous mission in human history. She commanded a team of enhanced soldiers who had volunteered to be modified using stolen alien biotechnology. The process was painful, risky, and probably shortened their lifespans, but it made them strong enough to fight aliens hand to hand. Hyojin had been a special forces operator in the Korean military, but the alien enhancements had turned her into something superhuman. She could survive in vacuum, punch through metal walls, and move fast enough to dodge energy weapons. Leading her team through the airlocks of disabled alien ships, she began capturing Imperial vessels from the inside. The aliens had never faced boarding parties before. Their security systems were designed to repel external attacks, not deal with enemies who were already inside their ships. Hyojin's enhanced soldiers moved through the alien vessels like ghosts, disabling crews and capturing critical systems. Before the Imperial forces could mount an effective defense, Gi Tae-yoon coordinated the entire operation from Earth's hidden command center. As a former air traffic controller, he had experience managing complex, fast-moving situations where split-second decisions could mean the difference between life and death. Now he was applying those skills to the largest military operation in human history. His screens showed the battle unfolding in real time as human forces systematically captured alien dreadnoughts. Each captured ship became a prize that could be studied, reverse-engineered, and eventually turned against the Empire. By the end of the day, humanity had achieved the impossible. They had not just defeated the Imperial fleet. They had captured. Admiral Vexmore had never felt so humiliated in his 3-century military career. The proud leader who had once commanded respect across 1,000 star systems now found himself sitting in a small conference room on a space station orbiting Earth, waiting to speak with representatives of the species he had planned to exterminate just 6 months ago. The human who entered the room didn't look like a typical diplomat. Seung-hwan Kim was wearing a simple business suit instead of elaborate, ceremonial robes, and he carried a tablet computer rather than ancient scrolls of treaty documents. But his eyes held a strength that made even the experienced alien admiral feel uncomfortable. The negotiation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had dictated terms to conquered species from a position of absolute power. Now, for the first time in Imperial history, they were the ones asking for mercy. Seung-hwan had been South Korea's top trade negotiator before the invasion, specializing in deals with much larger and more powerful nations. His experience dealing with economic superpowers had prepared him perfectly for negotiating with a galactic empire that was no longer quite as super as it used to be. The terms he presented were simple but revolutionary. Earth would not surrender or submit to imperial rule. Instead, the empire would recognize humanity as an independent galactic power with full sovereignty over their home system. Any future expansion by either side would require mutual agreement and respect for existing territorial boundaries. But the most important clause in the treaty was also the most dangerous. Earth demanded the right to contact and communicate with any species in the galaxy, regardless of their current relationship with the Empire. Humanity was essentially claiming the right to interfere in imperial affairs whenever they felt like it. Admiral Vexmore knew he had no choice but to accept. His military had been decimated, his technology had been compromised, and his emperor was demanding a quick end to this embarrassing conflict. The treaty was signed with ceremonies broadcast across both Earth and the imperial capital, marking the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. General Woo Jin Lee wasted no time in establishing humanity's new military force. The Terran Defense Corps combined the best human military traditions with captured alien technology, creating something that was uniquely Earth-based, but capable of operating anywhere in the galaxy. Within months, human warships were patrolling the outer edges of the solar system, serving notice that Earth was now capable of defending itself against any threat. Mi-young Park faced an even more complex challenge as head of the new Department of Xenological Affairs. A former anthropologist who had spent years studying human cultures, she now had to figure out how to communicate with hundreds of different alien species, each with their own languages, customs, and political systems. Her department became humanity's window into the wider galaxy, establishing communication protocols and cultural exchange programs that would help Earth navigate the complex relationships between different galactic civilizations. The real revolution began when Junho Lee departed Earth aboard humanity's first interstellar exploration vessel. The ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, enhanced with alien technology, capable of traveling vast distances and carrying a crew that could survive for years in deep space. Junho had been a Navy captain before the invasion, commanding destroyers in the Pacific Fleet. Now he was leading humanity's first diplomatic mission to the stars, carrying a message that would change the galaxy forever. The transmission he broadcast on every frequency used by galactic civilization was short and simple, but it sent shockwaves across thousands of star systems. Humanity was offering friendship, alliance, and protection to any species that wanted freedom from imperial domination. Yejin Choi monitored the responses from her position at Earth Command, watching as her communication arrays lit up with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were suddenly finding their voices again, reaching out to the strange new power that had somehow defeated the mighty empire. The revolution had begun, and humanity was leading it. The galaxy would never be the same.